Hi everyone, I'm Mark Brewer, Vice President Service Industries at IFS. It's no secret that manufacturers are under a lot of pressure right now. Customers expect better, faster service, operations are getting more complex, and new technologies like AI are reshaping what's possible. In our latest State of Service in Manufacturing report with Accenture, we spoke to 800 manufacturers around the world to understand the key challenges and trends shaping service today and how businesses are responding. What really stood out for me is that service isn't just a support function anymore, it's becoming a real profit powerhouse for manufacturers, helping them stay resilient, competitive, and ready for what's next, even in times of volatility. To explore that shift and some of the other findings in the report, I'm joined by Andy Burton, our Global Industry Director for Manufacturing at IFS, and Mike Goslin from Cubic Transportation Systems, where he's the Service Platforms Manager. Great to have you both here today, guys. Shall we jump right in?
Yeah, sure. Let's go.
Okay. One of the things that really rose to the top for me in the report was the topic of outcome-based service and servitization, okay? 94% of companies have said that's already impacted their operation, but only 25% have actually fully implemented it. That sounds like a bit of a paradox to me. Andy, if I could come to you first, you talk to a lot of customers. Does that resonate with you? And where do you see the impediment for greater adoption?
It is quite something that you wouldn't expect, but perhaps it's because where you're coming from. If you come from manufacturing and you're used to producing a product, and then you're going to servitize that product, that's different from coming in as a service, as an outset, starting out as a service. So, that's what you're going to do in mind. That's what you plan for. We've got a lot of customers who are manufacturers who want to make that jump, but haven't actually taken that leap yet to stop being product and supplying a service.
I get it. That makes sense. So there's something of a mindset shift there, isn't there? From being product-centric to more service-centric, right? Mike, you're a company that's gone through that journey over years.
But we had a service organization already, and what Andy said is absolutely right. We transformed our service operation. We weren't a manufacturing people that then tried to go straight to servitization and outcome. We transformed ours. And I think one of the challenges for manufacturers, and I think Andy we'll pick up on this, is that if you've got a trusted product and you sell that product, and that product is a brand and it's fantastic, to implement servitization, there's a whole infrastructure that needs to go behind it. With how do you manage the resources, how do you manage the contracts, how do you manage the time, how do you manage the services, the products, the devices that go into it, and that's maybe one of the reasons why people are held back.
Yeah, it is a step change because there's the revenue part of it as well. You're getting paid for the product at point of sale. When you go to service, you've got to wait until the service, the subscriptions start coming in. So there's a gap, and some see that as too much, or too big a step. There is a lot of reorganization that needs to go into it.
I think that's where we had the advantage, because we already had a service infrastructure, a mature service infrastructure, and we identified that we needed to get smarter, and that smarter was moving to servitization. So although it was a huge mindset change for us and a huge organizational change, it wasn't as huge as going from a manufacturing point of view.
The organization change is something I do want to pick up on. We had 61% of the companies in the report talk about the drive to appointing a chief service officer. Do you think that's a prerequisite essentially to moving to the outcome-based service model?
Well, if I go first with that one, that's a brilliant idea. Because then you're saying I'm committing to going into service,
right?
And you're investing the money in that person. So you've got somebody who can start to think, who's done it before, perhaps, and they can think and take you through that. I think there's that.
I absolutely think. I think service manager, service director, service whatever you want to call it, is essential, because part of servitization and outcome based is that you're in partnership with the customers now. And that person plays that role. They are not just the service organization lead, they are the partner lead as well, because it is a huge profit center and it is a huge way of generating revenue for the business. So you need someone that's going to strategically drive that, as well as be someone that can go into customers and have tough conversations, good conversations, and do that. So I think it's important.
You touched on a really key word there for me, Mike: partnership. I think one of the big advantages of moving to outcome-based models is both you as the service provider and the recipient of the service, your customer, are focused on one and the same thing, which is the output or the capability that's being delivered. That does raise another point, and you talk about contracts and profitability there. The monetization model changes. It changes from one of transactional, where you're selling products and delivering some after-sales capability, to a more lifecycle-oriented revenue model. Could you speak to that with respect to how that's happened in your company?
We are known for transportation systems, so people would transact with our gates and our ticket machines. But we don't sell gates and ticket machines. We sell guaranteed hours of availability for retail and validation. And that guaranteed availability is over, obviously, a contractual period of time. And it's in our interest for us to maintain it. But also, we like to think that we're doing something direct to the patrons. And we actually win the customer. And winning the customer for us is not just winning our customers, but it's, I've got guys in my team that take pride in the fact that they go to any station and the devices are working and they're up and doing it like that because we take pride in that uptime ourselves. And it is a mindset change. It is a complete change to walking through and just say, look at this sparkling product that we have here, isn't it wonderful? To actually thinking that our device can be in the middle of nowhere, in a little station in the middle of nowhere, is operating as much as something in the big hitching stations because we care about the outcome everywhere.
Can I just pick up on something that there's also another change in the design of what you've...
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you've got to make it serviceable, if that is a word.
Totally agree with that.
Because the design of something that you're selling as a product is not necessarily the same as something that you want to be able to strip down quickly, efficiently, and then perhaps modularize it so that you can pull bits out and repair it in situ.
Absolutely. When you're guaranteeing hours availability, the last thing you want is someone on site having to diagnose something for hours and hours and hours and then doing complex engineering changes. Modularizing your products, being able to take things in, take things out, quick fixes is a great way of maintaining the outcome. This is the balance between the engineers. We'll come on later, I'm sure, to the resources, but the balance you have is that you want the engineers to be skilled enough to not to have to send being backed because that's an overhead on the business. You want first-time fixes. You want them to go and fix it. But if the outcome and the clock is ticking, then getting the bit out through the repair loop and getting another bit in to maintain the outcome is very important. So designing things to do that is exactly the way forward.
Yeah, design to service is something that true servitization pioneers.
It's not the same as design for a product, is it?
Exactly. The way you build something is not necessarily the way you service something, and that's a shift. No, that's cool. So I think, servitization, the drive for outcomes, very dependent on your mindset as an organization and where you are in that journey as well. I think technology's got a big part to play in this, right? And of course, a conversation like this today has to involve AI, right? But of course, Mike, as a company, you've got connected assets. You've been performing IoT for many, many years. Talk us through that and how that's helped you in your servitization journey, but also how that layers in with AI and the adoption of AI. Because in the report, 96% of people talk about using AI, but not so many have really scaled it to the industrial level.
Yeah, I think true servitization relies on monitoring and IoT, because otherwise, how can you complete the outcome if you're not actually in control of what your devices are doing, being able to see what they're doing, real time monitoring? People talk about the Rolls Royce hours for power, whatever it is, power for hour.
Power by the hour.
Power by the hour, yeah. So we do monitor our equipment. And therefore, we will know something's faulty before the station staff do, because we'll monitor it and we'll know it. And if you've got true servitization, you're also then able to bounce it and repair it in situ, bounce it back and say reboot and stuff like that. Obviously, that's dangerous. You can't just keep doing that because then the device is perpetually rebooting all the time. But then also you can bounce it back to the customer. If we spot something, especially with our devices, we could potentially get the customer to say, can you go and remove that note from the validator or something like that? So for us, it's very important. When you collect all this data, you then have this fantastic data pool of stuff that you can use, because you've got messages, alerts, heartbeats, all this information that you're collecting across multiple different areas, terrains, stations with different weather, with different profiles, etc. And then also you have the information that goes into your trouble ticket systems and your parts used and your stock and your things going around. And if you've got that data, that's a really good large model of data that can be used for AI to start, bouncing it back.
I think just picking on there, I think the trick there is picking the data that you need, because you're going to get a lot of data back from your assets.
Absolutely. If you're doing like learning on the data, if you didn't have true engineering understanding of the data, you'll get some hallucinations. You know, for example, if the device is designed after a reboot to flush out any maybe alert messages, you might assume that reboot causes alerts if you didn't understand that was where it's designed. So you have to teach it that, because it won't teach it otherwise. It just sees this pattern. So yeah, you're absolutely right. The data it has to be learned and has to be understood and has to be applied. But I'll talk about it now. Is one of the great things is that and we spoke about this earlier. Is that one of the great things is that you can use this data for obviously predictive maintenance, which is one of the hot topics, predictive maintenance.
Right.
But you can also actually backfeed it into the product itself.
Yeah.
Because if you're using data that you're collecting, you can fix something at source rather than just rely and say, well, hang on, we know it's going to do this and we see that. Well, why is it doing it? Rather than we know how to fix it with maintenance. So you can actually use this data and close the loop back to your product and your design again from a system, modular, software, firmware, all the stuff that goes onto it. So it's really, really
right.
cool.
I mean, we actually have this figure of 8 concept, which is the closed loop from design to service back again. Andy, you talk to a lot of customers in customer advisory boards, user groups, other forums. AI is a hot topic on everybody's mind right now. Again, I'll go back to the stat. 96% of the respondents said they're using AI in some form, but only 28% have scaled it. What's the impedance for the greater adoption of AI in these organizations, would you say?
It's a good point, but what we're seeing from our customers is they're still in the experimental phase. There's a lot of pilots going on.
Yeah.
As AI is being tested. A lot of people are using ChatGPT or Copilot alongside what they're doing. So they could say, yeah, we're using AI.
Yeah.
The AI washing, if you like we used to have greenwashing.
Which I think is where the 96%.
I think they're saying, yeah, of course we're using AI because we think we have to be using AI. But that industrial AI, that bit where it actually starts benefiting and you can see the results, that's harder to get at. And you need, and they're not rolling out in a controlled fashion, let's say. There's lots of little initiatives going on in different departments, and that governance of AI perhaps is not there yet. Everybody's going off and so everybody's playing with it, but we're not seeing that benefit back. One of the advantages we have is we're supplying it in core. So that we're giving you the standard, not the standard use cases, but the typical use cases. So they come out of the box, as we would say.
Yeah.
So therefore they can have a flying start if they start using them.
So this is those industrial use cases embedded in the solution.
Yeah.
Right.
That's not just somebody writing an email with ChatGPT, because whilst that's helpful, that's not really helping the business processes.
And AI adoption within cubic transportation system.
Well, we use it for our scheduling of engineers.
Yeah.
That has an AI tool that matches the best resource to the incident activities using multiple criteria.
Yeah.
Location, skills required, tools, type of fault, etc., contractual impact. And we've been using that for a while, and it's been very successful. It without a shadow of a doubt, it transformed the way that we ran our service, and it worked very well with outcome, because we tuned it to be SLA so that it drove the outcome. But you could drive it for sustainability and optimize your travel, and it would then it would be a great sustainability tool. To reduce travel and reduce the footprint, carbon footprint and stuff like that. So we've been using that for a while. We are also sort of using the data that we're getting out of our data warehouse, out of our IoT, and we're having insights on that and applying those insights. So it's an exciting time. And industrial AI is very different from someone on their phone playing around with ChatGPT and Copilot and stuff like that, because you do have to have guardrails in, because it's money. It affects the bottom line, and your insights have to be thought about and controlled and managed. So it is really important.
There is also the security side of things as well.
For sure.
Business information is yours. You don't want it open to the internet.
Yeah.
And there are data concerns as well. But that we're getting, we're improving that. We're making things contextual. Contextual. Then we're looking where the data is coming from before supplying an answer.
Yeah. Great.
I think just picking up on Mike's point, he's got so much data coming in that AI would be brilliant over the top of that to looking for trends and all sorts of issues that.
But it can also be a little bit overwhelming, and this goes back to why adoption and all that, because when you've got all this data and it's a huge wave of data, it's where do you start?
Yeah.
And when you've got some traditional service leaders and and we might talk later about the aging workforce and stuff like that.
Right.
There are brilliant people. Service people are brilliant. They are absolutely amazing. But some of them are traditional people that have risen through the ranks, nuts and bolts people who are used to the trade, and they are nervous of insights and things like that. So you can understand why adoption's being held back a little bit sometimes. People are interested, but the adoption is kind of, ooh, where are we?
Well, picking up on that, there's the word trust.
Trust.
Sure.
Trust. You can't just switch AI on and it take over your business.
No, that's right.
Well, you could, but you wouldn't want to because you've built that business up.
Yeah.
You've sweat for that, and it's letting go of the reins a little bit.
Yeah, that's challenged even more with the advent of agentic AI,
Yep.
which are effectively digital workers,
Yeah.
right? And trust goes to another level. Moving to that.
There's nobody there to talk to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike did touch on another word which I'd like to pick up with you first, Andy. Sustainability. 97% of people in the report viewed that as strategically important. That sounds like incredibly high number to me, and considering the variations around the world and the different industries. How does that number stack up with what you're hearing from the industry?
It is a hot topic,
Right.
but it's becoming it's not quite there yet, but it's becoming the norm. It's becoming accepted that there's the legislative side of it. Sorry, I stumbled on that one, but legislative side of it, which is imposed on you by regulations.
Yeah.
But there's also now a willingness of people wanting to be more sustainable, and it's coming from the workers, it's coming from the customers.
I agree with that.
It's we don't want to waste this if we don't have to. Servitization is a brilliant way of helping with that,
Right.
because you're reusing and reusing and reusing, and to the point of, okay, I can't use it anymore. That's.
I think Mike's bursting to get him.
I know he is.
So, because you said that human level, I think, is absolutely spot on. People generally, day to day, we all have our recycling at home now. We're conscious about it, and we do generally care. And that does now seep into the way the industries are run at every level. And one thing that we've been doing very well for years is managing our repair process. We don't throw stuff away. We repair it, and we manage the repairs, and we have very powerful life cycle plans for our assets to ensure that we get as much out of them whilst being sustainable and being maintaining profitability. And it's a challenge managing those, and it's a challenge making sure that they're always efficient. But the bottom line is that people feel good about making stuff move forward and sustain.
I mean, let alone from the fact that you're getting the most use out of it, so therefore you're not spending money, a lot of money, replacing it. You're getting the best.
And that's
out of it.
exactly. I think that's exactly the point. In service, I use this phrase: service is inherently sustainable, right?
Yes.
It's all about running what you have better, faster, longer.
And having a really good plan for your assets, and looking at when things become obsolete, getting your bits procured early and most efficiently and stuff like that. So take a power supply, that power supply was bought then, we think it's going to start to degrade then, we can push it out to then. Having a really good plan for your products, it feeds into your sustainability plan and all that. And I think that people don't often have that really robust plan sometimes.
Cubic's a good example, Mike, I think, because a lot of people listening today might automatically think of service and in the field, but actually there's many service models. One of them is in the workshop, in the repair center, if you will. And at Cubic, you support this circular economy within the workshop.
Absolutely, yeah. And we, when something comes back to the workshop, it is assessed for, is it still up to its job? It'll be refurbed. It's not just repaired, it'll be refurbed as best it can. And they'll go out almost as new from the workshop.
Yeah.
And they are modular. They have been designed to be modular. And the guys in the workshop are absolutely fantastic. They're brilliant engineers, and they take real pride in repairing this stuff and getting it back out. And that's what you want, isn't it?
Yeah. We actually touched on Rolls-Royce as a company a little earlier when we talked about Power by the Hour. Rolls-Royce is a client of IFS. We're working on something called Blue Data Thread with them. In a nutshell, that is about extending the maintenance intervals so the plane comes in the hangar less frequently. It's a win-win-win. It's a win for Rolls-Royce. It's a win for the airline if you will, from flying hours, and it's a win from the patron.
And they've probably achieved that by looking at the data that they're collecting and looking at the alerts and the statuses and the reliability and the plan and everything.
They're looking at flight data, they're looking at thrust levels, they look.
So it tees all into the IoT, it feeds all into the back and using AI.
Absolutely, and that is an AI project with IFS to take all of that flight data from the different airlines and push it through these anomaly detection and time series forecasting models to come out with more optimum maintenance intervals. It's significant.
This is the move from preventative to predictive maintenance. So then getting feedback in real time tells you what's wrong before it goes wrong effectively, or you know that it's going wrong and you can do something about it, rather than every 6 months, every 100 hours, every 50 hours, change that part just because or just in case.
Absolutely.
But
absolutely.
From a sustainability perspective, though, that's still top of the agenda for a lot of your customers.
Yes.
Right. Cool. But I think hand in hand with sustainability comes the supply chain and supply chain resilience. There was a significant statistic in the report. 95% of companies have been impacted by supply chain disruptions in the last 12 months alone. I've seen some work from yourself, Andy, on this.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. I mean, I'm allowed to say the word tariff here because that's the one that shook most people, or the changeability of that tariff. You know, it was the rules. It was the changing rules.
The volatility.
The volatility of those rules was the real issue, because the one thing we all love in manufacturing is consistency. You know exactly what's coming, how long it takes to get to you, where it's coming from, how much it costs, those sorts of things. If suddenly a spanner goes into the works and that cost is now, you might have to route it through a different way to keep the cost down because you're now playing games with borders.
Yep.
That's the concern. I think that certainly in the last 12 months.
One of the things that makes service a little different to the production side of the manufacturer's world, many people are familiar with the term just in time from a manufacturing side of the world. In service, we use the phrase just in case. We don't know necessarily when that event's going to come about. Therefore, we don't know when that part is going to be required.
I think going back, was it 4 years to COVID? I think that was a shake-up. Just in time was the thing. You paid as little for as you could for the quality you needed, and it arrives just before you need to consume it on the line. I think as soon as that came about and all of those lines broke, you can see manufacturers now are just encasing as well.
Yeah,
they're buffering more.
Mike, spare parts is a significant part of your business today.
Yeah, and the effective management of the quality and the quantity of those is essential. Take, for example, a note handler. We could have millions of note handlers and have one at every single place ready to go. Right. That's an overhead. Yeah. And overheads kill businesses. Yeah. So we manage the totals based on the predictive maintenance of what we're expecting to fail and on certain major events. Actually, major events have an effect on the usage and the thing. So we're constantly looking at the data and looking at where devices will be needed and where to best put them, and keeping that spares as tight and as small as possible whilst achieving the business.
Yeah.
Anything above that is an overhead, and that will cost the business. Anything below that, and you're not doing the job. And that constant management of those is ever changing. Continuous improvement, constantly looking at the data, moving forward. And then obviously I spoke about the plan. The plan for the note handler is that it will last so long and then become obsolete. So you then have to have overlap to that your procurement for the next one. And that next one isn't going to have the same standards, isn't going to do this, do that. So you have to start plugging that in early to start doing the analysis of it and where it fits and engineering fit it. So it's all very, very important from a service point of view.
I think, I'll just come back to you in a second, Andy. I think, spare parts in the supply chain it is a quantum leap of a challenge from parts in production, because you are trying to forecast. You are trying to forecast something that you don't have a direct handle on. In production, you know what you're going to build, you know the sequence that you're going to build them, so you know with confidence what you can commit to in the supply chain. But with service, you need some sophisticated tools. And in my experience, that's where AI has also a part to play from a forecasting perspective to try to better accurately predict what your demand's going to be. What part, in what location, at what time.
Yeah. I also believe that if you've got a mature service organization and you've got pure data, sometimes just having the pure data in front of you jumps out a little bit. And this goes back to having been able to collect the data and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Some of these things just literally jump out at you, you know. But yeah, AI, I think this is an area where that's a great industrial case for AI, is that sort of management and using that. Because you've got the constraints. It is parts moving from A, B, C to D. It is required at these places. It has this cost. It has an overhead of resources from cars and vans. The data's brilliant for AI to be able to look at that and improve.
You've got historical data. You've got predictive maintenance.
Absolutely.
You've got failure rates on the machines, MTBF, MTTR, and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to pick up another one on the volatility of the supply chain, which is causing manufacturers to nearshore.
Yeah.
So they're now dual sourcing because they know the cheapest that they can get is perhaps a long way away and is vulnerable to delays.
Yeah.
So they then have like a second, possibly more expensive alternative, but they can get their hands on quicker.
Yeah.
So there's this dual sourcing or nearshoring or friendshoring is another word that we've heard, is where you start bringing it closer to you so that you can control that.
So we've talked about spare parts there, but parts is only part of the solution, if you will. At the end of the day, this is still a people business, right? We have resources in the field, technicians, engineers, whatever name you want to give them. It probably shouldn't have staggered me, but it did. 98% of companies talk about having a labor problem or a skills shortage challenge. Did it surprise you guys?
No, I've heard that a lot. I heard that a lot. Replacing people is difficult. There's a lot of manufacturers with open vacancies and they can't fill them. The other thing we're seeing is, as we're adopting things like AI, you need a different skill of person as well. Right. So some of those roles perhaps will just go away and be replaced. But the skill side of things, where you were talking about your engineers being very proud of what they do, and it's difficult to replace those people.
Absolutely. Our field engineers are brilliant. They are absolutely superb. Some of the environments they work in is not particularly nice, and they do an amazing job. But there are a layer of them that are aging and starting to retire and move on. One of the areas that we've invested in is a really, really powerful apprentice scheme, which is it's not just I'll come and join us and be an engineer. It's broad based. It's technical. It has college backing. We've got dedicated people to manage them in the company, hold their hand, mentors. And some of these guys go on immediately on the end of their apprenticeship into sort of layers of team leaders and stuff, because they're brilliant resources, and they become evangelists for the apprentice scheme as well. Because so we're very proud of our apprentice scheme, and we're very proud that some of these people have pushed on and been very valuable in Cubic in the service.
There's a lot changed since I was in manufacturing and now, and the way people interact with systems and things. Yeah. And manufacturing, we're hearing, is got a sort of a bad name. It's repetitious, it's dirty, it's long hours, it's shift work, it's all of the things that the people nowadays they perhaps don't want. And so somehow we've got to modify it so that children today live in a virtual world. Yeah, I used to use a piece of paper. I've still got a piece of paper in front as comfort there. I'm used to a paper and pen, so. It's a different way of thinking. It is a different way of thinking. Perhaps one of the ways of attracting them is to say that manufacturing isn't manufacturing, it's problem solving. Yeah. Give them a problem and they now solve.
Well, that is service.
That is service. Yeah.
I'm going to say something. Some of our older engineers, some of our people that have been for a long while, people, the young people on phones and stuff like that, it's natural. We've had several refreshes of our mobile app for the engineers. And the adoption and usage by all the engineers has been staggering. So we should applaud the fact that everyone has picked up on it, and that everyone across all the range and skills and everything has picked up on it. So let's not write off these people straight away.
I wouldn't know.
No. Because they've been staggeringly good at doing it. And in fact, the last time we did a refresh, it was quite a major refresh. Our early life support, we planned to be maybe 2 months, and we'd almost wrapped it up after a week because the adoption was so good. So I think that people are adaptable. Engineers are very adaptable. But I think it's the attracting new people into it, as you said, that's the hard thing.
There's the attraction and the retention aspect, right? And on the attraction, the next generation workforce, as you said, they're more tech savvy. They live on, the mobile device. So the more tools we can give them. And AI's, again, played a part here, by the way, because, traditionally this device has been predominantly seen as an administrative tool. It's actually being used to fill forms out. What parts did I use? How long did the job take? What notes have I taken? Which help the back office considerably. AI is enabling that tool to actually be truly value add to the guy in the field or the girl in the field. A co-pilot that can walk you through a diagnosis, for example, step by step, or just like on your Teams calls, transcribing your notes from the work that you've carried out. So it is moving.
And connectivity to the device itself, which is something that has opened up the whole world now. You can go to a machine and you can see the sensors in the machine and you can interact with it easily on the device now. And stuff like that.
But we are putting more challenges on some of these people in the field, Mike. We're expecting them to be ambassadors for the company. We're asking them to upsell and cross-sell our capabilities to the customer, for example.
I think that's always been the case, but I think it's now recognised more. I think if you take it back years ago, engineers used to turn up on site and, hey, how you doing? Oh, good to see you. Did you see that film? And that sort of stuff. I thought was the case. But I think when you're now in partnership, it's kind of more recognised and tick the box that they are actually more.
One upside I saw.
And our engineers are really, really good. They work in a difficult environment and they go around doing that. I've encountered them myself going through stations and they're brilliant.
Right, brilliant. I'll look out for them next time. One upside that I have seen coming out of the aging workforce is, guys in the field that have a mass of knowledge, they actually, in some of the customers I work with, have moved to a remote expert role, where they're actually, rather than going out to 5 or 6 customers in the day, they're supporting 30 of their junior or less experienced colleagues remotely.
Yeah,
and that is a win-win. It means they can work in a hybrid environment without all the travel, but they can still leverage that knowledge and democratize that knowledge.
Absolutely.
To the other work.
And we've utilised those skills absolutely in that way. Yeah,
brilliant.
There's the other side is you can actually take videos and create work instructions directly from videos. So you get that person doing their normal task, whatever they're doing, and you video it. You don't have to write it.
And you've got the solution. Next time.
Where do you go if you want to repair something? You go to YouTube.
Yeah.
You look on your phone. That's what the incoming future employees are going to look for. They want to watch it, pause it, run it back, forwards. And we can do that.
Which is knowledge management, which is skill, and knowledge management and data and having effective knowledge management at your hand and at your service desks and underpinning your co-pilot and all that. And so having that is a core essential thing you need for
one other area that I've seen some of our customers think of this more broadly, the workforce challenge, is to think of other demographics that could be part of the workforce. For example, we've got a customer that's actually looking to tap into the gig economy effectively. There's a lot of students, that, for example, during the holidays, they've got, time to give over, or even, the school mom or the school dad that's working around school hours. Can we leverage technology to allow them to be tapping and out of the sector? And I've seen that with some of our customers.
That would be where we in our industry would struggle, but absolutely I think that it can apply. Yes, without a shadow of a doubt, because isn't Deliveroo a service to takeaway? That's all it really is, isn't it? And others, I should mention others, but they are just services. So yeah, I think that's an absolute way. And again, to get to that point, you have to think about the knowledge, you have to think about the technology, you have to think about the work instructions you said, you have to think about the products so that they're not turning up to something that's a complicated thing. So
to be able to do that, they have to be empowered.
You've got to put all the steps in place to do that. But
for sure. Guys, fantastic discussion. Closing thoughts. Was there anything in particular, Andy, that really stood out or surprised you in the report?
We're going to have to go back to the servitization thing because, that number is huge.
Right.
And I know that the UK is one of the regions that's leading in servitization, but actually it's one of the ones that's lagging behind in the adoption of AI.
Okay.
And I think servitization, where we're getting all the data in and we're learning about all the what impacts the different parts of sustainability and reuse of components.
Right.
I think that's perfect for AI, and I'm surprised that it's not as the uptake isn't as big as the uptake in servitization
In the UK?
In the UK.
Okay, interesting. Mike, anything jump out for you?
Similar to that, the report is very comprehensive and it has some amazing stats and things in it. But Japan's adoption or of servitization being so high surprised me, because I actually thought we would sort of maybe be leading that in Europe and things like that, because we always talk about the Rolls Royce. So Japan being so high is really interesting, because maybe it's perhaps my interpretation of the way they work is totally wrong, but I thought there'd be much more manufacturing and quality of product and that first rather than servitization. So that was the one thing that jumped out for me.
Yeah, makes sense. Brilliant. Great observations, guys. Thank you.
Well, hang on. Do you have one? Have you got an observation from the report?
There was one thing that really did jump out for me, Andy, actually, and it was around predictive maintenance. I was quite taken aback by the fact that only 21% of companies have truly adopted predictive maintenance. You know, today we've talked a lot about outcome-based surveys. We've talked a lot about IoT and AI to analyze all of that data, yet only 21% of companies have actually taken that to the level of moving to a predictive model. So that really surprised me. I imagine it's more down to trust in the data and their ability to actually do something with the gold that they find through mining that data and selling that back to the customer. But I think it was really interesting, 21%. We got to work on that. That's all we've got time for today. But if you found this useful, make sure to download the full State of Service Manufacturing Transformation Report from IFS and Accenture to explore more global and regional insights and trends. Thanks for watching.